best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. Hey folks, Ryan Tutel, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates. Josh, do most injury accidents end up in court?
Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court through a fair negotiation with an insurance company. However, sometimes it is necessary. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get a fair settlement. Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court with a fair negotiation with the insurance company. However, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get the right settlement for you.
It's Josh at the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
Still emerging from your winter hibernation and need to get your bearings straight? Cruise on down to Port of Missoula for all your spring and summer needs. Come check out their men's and women's streetwear, sunglasses, and shoes from brands like Vans, Adidas, Thrasher, Volcom, and the original Port of Missoula brand. They also have all your skating needs covered, from tune-ups to fresh-made custom boards. Port of Missoula, Missoula's original board shop since 1989, on the Hip Strip, 618 South Higgins.
We ate a lot of steaks before we came up with the Montana Club's Private Reserve Cut Angus. It's as good a steak as you're going to get. Our Private Reserve Cut Angus is specially cut for us. And with our custom seasoning, it has a flavor that's absolutely incomparable. We're confident that it will satisfy the most discriminating steak customer for an unrivaled steak experience. Real Montana, real food. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Take summer by storm with a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the summer sales event, rebates go as high as $2,000 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on our legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $2,000 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Summer Sales Event at Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday, and they are celebrating with unprecedented savings on select parts and accessories with the purchase of a new Polaris off-road vehicle, Beta or Husqvarna dirt bike, or any of their new line of Crest pontoon boats. Go to Kurtz Polaris for details. Offers valid in U.S. through 7/23/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet, never drink and ride.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Is it too early to talk football? Absolutely not. You all right over there?
I'm giving myself blackout with my headphones. I don't know, dude.
Knock yourself
State
out?
of disarray.
Oh my goodness. Clean shaven.
It's because I'm feeling 13 again. I got no facial hair. I got a Creed tape.
Did you get carded on you? Yeah. Tommy.
Thanks, Tommy. Got a Creed tape. Can't wait to hear what's on this.
Man. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, and they are celebrating their 30th birthday. That's right. 30 years they've been in business this July. So all month they are offering up to 30%. That's right, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna or Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. That's right. Yourself a pontoon boat. That's the way to go. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. Coulter, this is pretty cool, man. I'm pumped up about this. Now, we should tell the people too while we're talking, into this. We're excited about football season. I've been thinking about it. You know what game I watched over the weekend? South Carolina Clemson.
Man, you're amazing. What do you get out of that?
Football.
You just like watching them just run around and hit.
Well, what kind of question is that? Yeah, of course I do. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's what I do, though.
I'm a results-based guy. I want to know what happened, and I already know what happened in that
But
game.
here's the thing. No, and that's a very fair point. I have so many games on here, and some of them that I didn't get to, like a regular season, North Carolina State, Wake Forest ACC game. I don't have any idea what happened. I don't know how it happened. I don't know what the result was. I know that neither of these teams were of any consequence on any sort of national level or whatever. Did either of them even go to a bowl game? I don't know. But in terms of this individual game, it is like watching it the first time because I probably got 120 football games on the DVR. And so I can go back and go, well, yeah, I mean, I got no idea what happened in this one. Let's take a look. Take a little peek, Great, Clemson. They're going to be national champions. Now, the Clemson game, you do know that Clemson beat South Carolina. You do know that. But how it happened is actually kind of surprising. They were down early. Tied at halftime, I think. Yeah, maybe one-score game at halftime. Blitzed them in the second half a little bit. That's the way it goes.
Tease for later this week, we'll be doing segments and also supplemental podcast segments on our All Big Sky teams and our preseason polls leading up to the Big Sky kickoff next week. Another tease. We'll start our remote broadcasts on Monday.
This was the whole thing that I was trying to get to anyway, and I couldn't even get there. Sorry. Yes, we can talk about football now because this weekend in Spokane, the annual Big Sky kickoff, which is, I think, a pretty cool event. I like the fact that the conference, takes it upon themselves to put this on. And there's some reasons they do it because they get some imaging for like Root Sports that they do. It's going to play as part of the, when they do the big, television production side of this, it's going to air in all these games that happen, throughout the course of the year. So there's some pragmatic elements to it, but basically all 13 head football coaches from the Big Sky Conference, a couple of players from each team, usually something like an offensive and defensive captain or representative from each team comes, and then all the media that can or wants to is there. By the way, 80% of it from the state of Montana, the media.
There's a lot from the Spokane, Cheney, Idaho, Moscow little corridor.
Yeah.
I expect people from Coeur d'Alene, Spokane media markets and Moscow media markets to be there. A ton of people from Montana to be there.
Bozeman,
and that's about it.
Yeah, our boy Greg, he's going to be out
This is, I know we need to get into talking more about these remotes, but Idaho is so perplexing to me. I was talking to Mass in Guernsey, his colleague of ours, Idaho State Journal sports editor, covers Idaho State down there in Pocatello. And he was saying, I was like, you coming to Spokane? And he's like, no, dude. He's like, it's way too far. I'm like, how far is it? He's like, it's like 9.5 hours. I said, what? How? He said, you got to go this crazy way. It's just like how Boise and Coeur d'Alene are farther apart than Missoula and Boise.
Right.
Because of the mountains that are in the middle and like the way you have to go around. I mean, I have a friend from college who her parents live in Coeur d'Alene. She lives in Boise. She flies home to go home for holidays.
The mountainous terrain between us and in Montana and going southwest is remarkable.
It's remarkable.
It's spectacular.
It's fun to drive.
But there's no. I mean, I give Lewis and Clark, hats off to you. I mean, how in the world. So anyway, we will be at that. As Coulter said, we're going to do the show live from Spokane on Monday, and that will be at the conclusion of the Big Sky kickoff there. So we're looking forward to that. But also, that will also initiate our Montana Football Hour, which we are bringing back for another year. Very excited to do this. So if maybe, if you weren't with us on SWX last year and are just getting into the show, last year, all football season, we dedicate the first hour of the show every week. So every Monday show, presumably we're on the air on Mondays, barring a holiday or something like that. But the first hour of the show is the Montana Football Hour, dedicated to football in the state of Montana. Montana State, of course, but also, you can get into the NAIA stuff, even some high school stuff when it's warranted, but recaps of what's going on. It's a really fun thing to do, and it's where you can get all of your football news, information, commentary, interviews, all of it, all season long. Montana Football Hour right here on this show every Monday from 4 to 5. And, of course, We will talk more football than just 1 hour a week, of course.
Totally.
That you can just guarantee, lock it in, that hour, that's what we're going to be doing around here. So
reviews, previews of the Cats and Grizz each week. We'll have audio from all the post-game press conferences and stuff. This first Montana Football Hour will likely have some stuff from both Jeff Choate and Bobby Houck, as well as the player representatives for the two Montana schools. Montana is bringing Dalton Sneed and Dante Olson, no surprises there.
Yep.
And Montana State is bringing Kevin Cassis and Jacque Allen, which the latter, a little bit surprising because Montana State has 6 captains this year. He's not one of them. I'm thrilled that he's going because if you haven't heard Jacque Allen talk,
it's going to be a great interview.
He's a great interview. He does not lack confidence, let's say that. He is a very sure of himself young man. Being a guy that started at Virginia Tech, he's got the swagger and the talent to match the way he talks, but I'm excited to have him there as well.
And now let's get to the point that we were all working up to, and that's this. And you maybe heard the promos on the radio and stuff and so forth, but Coulter has been very instrumental in this. But we, Tutel and Nuanez, ESPN Radio, are teaming up with Widmer Brothers Brewing all summer to send a group of people to Autzen Stadium in Eugene, Oregon, on the 14th of September. We are basically going to start doing remotes at restaurants, establishments around the city of Missoula all summer long. Basically do effectively one a week.
Basically every Thursday.
Every Thursday. There's going to be a couple of days that are going to be a little bit different, but we're going to be bouncing around town, and we're going to have tickets at every single one of these to give away to you. So you can register if you're in Western Montana, even if you're just passing through, whatever. Go to the places on the list, and we'll go through them in a moment. Put your name in the box, submit it there, and that's it. And then then we will pull names at each broadcast, and we'll be giving away tickets for you to go to one of the very cool stadiums in all of college football for sure. Obviously, we know what a program Oregon has, and anytime, whether it's Montana State or Montana, that they're stepping up in, Montana State starts off at Texas Tech in the Big 12 in Lubbock. Montana this year going to Oregon. It's fun, man. We were at the Montana-Washington game. Look, we know how that game ended. It was 63-7, something like that.
63-7, yep.
Regardless of outcome, and you never know when something magical might happen. You never know when the Cats roll into 98, 105-degree Lubbock, Texas, and just start going to work. You never know when the Grizz might go into Oregon, and all of a sudden you got a tie game in the fourth. I don't know. Not saying any of that's going to happen, but what I can tell you is no matter what, it's fun, man. That is fun to get there and get into when you're talking about 50, 60, 70, 80,000 people at a football game. It's cool to see, and cool to see, your team beat the Cats, the Grizz, whatever. And so the fact that, here in Missoula, Widmer Brothers, wanted to do this and get this going with us for this is cool. And I'm excited because there's a bunch of people that can now go to a game that they maybe thought was only a pipe dream, and that's exciting to me.
I've covered a ton of FBS games dating back to my time working at the Bozeman Chronicle, as well as just doing Skyline Sports, but I've actually never covered the Grizz against an FBS opponent. The Grizz have played FBS opponents throughout the years, but I've never covered the Grizz against FBS opponents, so that will be a one of a kind. I've never been to Oregon either. I've never been to the Autzen Stadium, I should say. I've been to Oregon plenty of times. I was actually born in Oregon. Well, my family lived in Oregon when I was born. Regardless, we lived a long ways away. It's a different story for a different time. 12-person town, had to drive a long ways. Speaking of the Idaho mountains, but it'd be a cool experience. It's going to be a night game.
Yep.
And
Pac-12
a regionally relevant team in Oregon with potentially the number 1 overall pick in the draft next year, and Justin Herbert. So there's a lot of intrigue there. But stay tuned to ESPN Radio. Right here, we'll have promotions running throughout the next couple months. We'll always let you know where we're going to be. We're going to get this thing kicked off down at Katie O'Keefe's on Thursday, July 18th.
Give them the list. This is not an order of where we're going to be, and we'll make sure the schedule's out both on Facebook, and each week we'll make sure that you know where to go to come hang out with us, have maybe a couple of Hefeweizens and get yourself a couple of tickets. But tell them, Coulter, the different places around town that we're going to be all summer long.
Get this kicked off next Thursday at Katie O'Keefe's. If you haven't been down there, it's remodeled. They got the whole downstairs open, too. It's a sweet, sweet sports bar. And then we're going to be rolling on through Fuddruckers, Desperado, Reds, Paradise Falls, Locals, Stockman's Bar, the Iron Horse, and the Press Box. So each one of those establishments,
Good list.
Each one of those establishments has a registration box. So you can go register anytime. There are various different places. So some people have them just right up on the bar. You'll be able to see it. Everybody that works at all the places knows where that is at. So just ask them. Some people keep it behind the bar because it's a little bit, busy at some of the bars. Like I know the Despo, you just got to ask them.
I know what I do. I walk in there, I pull out all the ones that are in there. I write one card, put my name, and seal that thing back up.
Yeah.
So for the shysters out there like myself, no, we're not having that.
No doubt. But
under lock and key.
Either way, 9 different establishments. So just look for the registration boxes. We'll make sure that we send pictures out on all our social medias, ESPN Missoula Facebook, ESPN Missoula Twitter.
And the boxes are out now, so you can
boxes are out now, so you can go and register.
Yep.
And this giveaway is presented by Widmer Brothers Brewing, based in Portland. There's a big Widmer Brothers pub out there. They're going to have a tailgate party before the game, so there's going to be a ton of stuff involved in this deal. So go around town. If you're there, register in the boxes. Drink yourself a Widmer Hefeweizen. I guarantee you'll like it. And stay tuned right here. Each of the next, 9 Thursdays, guys. This will be fun. Kicking off your Thursday night. Each and every Thursday night, you just come watch Tutel Nuanez, have some beers, and
it's the first day of the weekend.
Get the weekend rolling.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Hey, hour 1 in the books, hour 2 straight ahead. More NBA free agency. We haven't even scratched the surface. Next.
Alpine Touch has been providing you with the distinct seasonings you know and love for decades. Now, Alpine Touch has something to help you unleash the freshness of all the delicious flavors you need to spice up any meal. Check out Alpine Touch's new coarse grinds, unleashing the fresh taste of the garlic pepper or all-purpose seasonings to please any nose or taste bud. Coarse grinds can be purchased by the pound at retail locations around the state or at alpinetouch.com. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, pump it up, pump it up.
At the cabin, in your own backyard, have fun and be refreshed with Town Pump. Twisted Tea 18 packs are just $18.99. Headed off on your next adventure? Dinner is easy. Kielbasa sausage skewer in the deli, 2 for $5 at Town Pump.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, but we also know that you're going to pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it. Well, not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with a staff of specialists that can answer any question. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and, are you ready, lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh from the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, if our listeners have been injured in an accident, how can you help?
We're here to help you after a car accident by negotiating with insurance companies, recovering lost wages if you have any, and even getting you into a rental car if you need one. Call us today for a free consultation, and we'll get started helping you right away.
If you need help, get a hold of the Advocates. Call Josh at 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve an advocate.
America is kept safe because the Army National Guard responds, protects, and supports our nation when it needs them most. The Army National Guard responds to disasters such as wildfires and floods. They protect us with missile defense, cybersecurity, and civilian support teams for chemical, biological, and radiological hazards. Be there for your community and your country. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service. Sponsored by the Montana Army National Guard. Aired by the Montana Broadcasters Association and this station.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. The Missoula Osprey used a late rally to post a 9-6 win over the Billings Mustangs in 10 innings Sunday night, winning for the 5th straight time in the process. The suddenly red-hot O's scored 2 runs in the top of the 8th inning to tie the game at 6, then scored 3 more in the 10th. Kevin Watson Jr. hit 2 home runs, including a 2-run blast in extra innings that proved to be the difference. Missoula completes its rapid 5-game road trip in Billings tonight. The Ospreys are now 2 games back of the Idaho Falls Chuckers. They return Wednesday evening to face the Orem Owls.
Former Montana State standouts Tyler Hall and Keldron Blevins made their NBA Summer League debuts over the weekend. Hall, who is the all-time leading scorer in the history of the Big Sky Conference, played 3 minutes for the Chicago Bulls on Sunday night. He did not take a shot. Blevins went 0 for 1 from the field in 9 minutes for the Portland Trailblazers in a 20-point loss to the Detroit Pistons on Saturday.
And finally, NBA free agency went into overdrive over the weekend. Reigning Finals MVP Kawhi Leonard shocked the league by helping broker a deal that lands him with the Los Angeles Clippers as a free agent. Well, he also helped the Clippers trade for All-Star forward Paul George, formerly of the Oklahoma City Thunder. That moves, plus Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving signing with the Nets. The Los Angeles Lakers trading for Pelican superstar Anthony Davis changes the face of the league. Also, the United States women's national team World Cup champions again. Second consecutive such championship after a 2-0 win.
Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound. Tutel and Nuanez. All guests join the show on the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studio on ESPN Radio in Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television. Here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hour 2. The NBA free agency landscape is nearly complete, although the move from the weekend maybe precipitates another one, that being Russell Westbrook, who is likely going to be moving on somehow, some way from Oklahoma City. But we'll get into that. If you missed anything in the first hour, check it out on the podcast. The podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app and on iTunes. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to it anytime you'd like. Re-listen to whatever you missed. Get it all on the podcast. It's there thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. We are in the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris, this July, guess what? Represents their 30th birthday. They've been in business 30 years this month, and they are celebrating by offering up to 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. It's a heck of a sale at that. 30% off on the MSRP on some of that stuff. Impressive from Kurtz Polaris. Colter, we talked a lot about Kawhi and Paul George and some of what that means and what it means for the Los Angeles Lakers. I'd like to, you put this great list together, and I want to go through this with you. But just quickly before this, can we just talk for a moment about Zion Williamson and the 15 minutes that he played? Preseason in NFL football, people are going, do I need to watch? Do I need to look at it? Well, no, not normally. Not necessarily. But here's what I have found. When a guy, you can tell when a guy belongs almost immediately when he steps on the floor, and it can be a big question mark. One of the guys that I'll never forget was Cam Newton. The first time Cam Newton took a snap in the NFL in a preseason game, I was watching and I went, whoa. Like I'm not good at projections, okay? I'll just be upfront with it. I'm not really good at taking guys that are at the college level and whatever their sport is and going, here's why he's going to be great in the pros, here's why he's not going to be great in the pros. I'm more interested at times in some of the personality stuff or whatever. But Cam Newton was great, obviously, at Auburn, national championship, the whole deal. But you're like, okay, what is he going to be really as a quarterback? And when he set up there for the Carolina Panthers and started playing in his first NFL game, I went, wow, this guy is going to run the show. And, it's not like he's become, he was maybe a top 5 quarterback in the league in his kind of best year or two. But clearly he was a starter. Clearly he's a franchise guy. And it just felt like you saw that right away, and you can see it at times. I don't want to make too much out of a half of basketball. But what I saw out of Zion Williamson, and granted, by the way, this is not This is against other rookies. It's against other kind of, fill out your squad type of guys who are just fighting for a roster spot and that. It's not Zion Williamson going against Anthony Davis. It's not Zion Williamson going against, Joel Embiid. But when you see him go out there and just rip a straight up other NBA guy and throw it home and just dunking all over the place and leaving you go, holy cow, this guy is something else. And I hope that he can stay healthy. He has a knee contusion in his very first game. They're going to hold him out as a major precaution for the rest of Summer League, no problem. But I was amazed at what I saw out of Zion Williamson, I must say.
I heard the best description of Zion Williamson that I've heard over the weekend. And that is that with the level of pro sports have reached in America today, that the situation where you are truly the biggest kid on the playground and the fastest kid on the playground doesn't exist. You can be really big like Cam Newton, but there's still hundreds of guys in the NFL that are bigger than Cam Newton. You can be plenty big like Adrian Peterson and fast and all these guys, but as far as you actually have more girth, I mean, Zion Williamson is the third heaviest player in the entire league, and he's still one of the fastest guys in the league. That in itself is a complete anomaly. It's not possible. It doesn't happen.
Fast, but also, I mean,
explosive.
The leaping.
It's
not possible.
He's startlingly explosive.
Yes.
But what Kendrick Perkins said in his analysis of Zion was, he said Zion Williamson is going to run through the league for 3 years. But if he doesn't lose weight, he's not going to last. Because you just truly can't play 82 games a year weighing 290. You just can't.
By the way, from someone who would know.
I mean, like Kendrick said, get down to my size, which is still 260.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still doing plenty fine.
Kendrick Perkins was, but he had to fight that fight himself.
Zion Williamson's also so young and, I mean, to a certain extent, underdeveloped in ways that, I mean, if he did lose 20 pounds, can you imagine how explosive he would be? He'd have a 50-inch vertical.
Yeah.
It's like taking off the 25-pound vest that you've been training with.
You're yes and no. I think that's true. Here's the other thing though. My impression is not that Zion Williamson's like out of shape somehow. Like
No, he's not out of shape.
I'm just body.
No, I know. I'm just talking about the conditioning level, because he could reach a higher conditioning level.
Yeah, that's probably true. Okay, let's do this. Coulter, you went through and you made a list of easily a dozen, maybe more, teams with their basically top 2 players, or in some cases top 3 players, and you want to sit here and say, well, who's got the best group? Because it's remarkable now. Here's what I will say for this Paul George Kawhi deal to the Clippers. It has blown the lid off of any expectation that I would certainly have for some front-running team. I think the NBA is going to be more open than it's probably been in 3 decades this season. And that makes me happy. That makes me interested in the whole thing. I'm excited about the ride. But to sit here and go, well, look at how these great players are playing together over the country, over the face of the entire association.
So let's start by talking like this. Victor Oladipo has become a good enough player that I ranked him in my top. I think I had him 16th in the NBA. And when Sean Rainey and I did the rankings when you were in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And he was good enough, even before he got hurt, to set the table for the Pacers, for them then to be good enough to make the playoffs.
5th seed, I think.
5th seed. And they had the inside track on the 3 before he got hurt.
Yeah.
And they added Malcolm Brogdon. And I still don't know if they're good enough to make the playoffs now, with the way that the league has shifted.
Totally.
When you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, they have 2 one-and-done, number 1 overall picks in their primes, in Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. And I still think they're on the outside looking in.
They're not even. They're
like the 20th best duo in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, that all the things you're saying is true. Andrew Wiggins has been such a disappointment.
Yes.
And the big cat is not meeting his potential. Even though he's great, his potential is out of this world. And he's not reaching that either. And so that's disappointing. But anyway, your point is taken.
The San Antonio Spurs have made the playoffs, 117 years in a row? I mean, they've won. That doesn't matter what happens. They go to the playoffs.
Yes.
And it's not as if they are in some sort of weird rebuild. No. They have great young players. I think DeJounte Murray, when he gets fully healthy, is an awesome point guard, great young point guard. I think that, on down the line, but then they also have two, not just good players, two all-stars. DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge are 20-point-per-game scorers. These guys are top 15 scorers in the league. I still don't know if the Spurs are in the playoffs, right? And so then you look at, I think when the trade went down, and like you were saying, that both the Pelicans and the Lakers won the trade, I think that there was a consensus agreement that Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram had a chance to thrive, not being in LeBron's shadow, not being in the shadow of the Lakers. And you add those two guys with Drew Holiday and Zion Williamson, and you think, well, man, the Pelicans are a playoff team. But then you think, well, maybe they're not when you think about everybody that everybody else has. So then we start going through the duos, and you have, to me, there's several tiers, but the top tier, the top four duos in the league are Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis and LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and then Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and or Steph Curry and Draymond Green. So I guess let's start there. With Klay Thompson out, Steph Curry and Draymond Green, or Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid?
Steph and Draymond.
Which I think I agree with you, but I don't think that would be the consensus among pundits.
I don't think it would be a consensus either.
But there's two things that I think that people.
Are you already assuming those other three are better than Steph and Draymond Green? KD and Kyrie?
I think that the best duo in the league is LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I think when they're both at their peak, I honestly think, truly with Kevin Durant out next year, I think that LeBron James and Anthony Davis are the two best players in the NBA, with the exception of Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah,
I would say Paul George is like somewhere in the top 12. He's an all-NBA player, certainly. But I think you have at least two of the top 5, if not two of the best 3, with Anthony Davis and LeBron James.
Yeah, here's the thing. KD and Kyrie are not KD and Kyrie. They're just Kyrie right now.
Right.
So that's a bummer. And so if you're going to take Klay Thompson off the list, you got to take Kevin Durant off the list. Because if you say to me, if I only have to pick two of the three guys, I guess that's fine. But I don't want to. I want to take all three guys because all three guys are there. And so when Klay Thompson is there, here's the thing. I think people are forgetting all of a sudden, not forgetting, but they're going, okay, well, now this is where Golden State's run ends. And guess what? That may be true. That may be true. But they're certainly not the front runners. They're certainly not the favorites at this point, I would say. But also, do they have a 5% chance to win a championship entering the year? Just like any, which is all you can ask for, according to some. Certainly they do. So I'm not there, but yes, look, Anthony Davis and LeBron and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, I think are probably the two best two-person duos in the NBA. And they are brand new, and they're both in Los Angeles. So I am swayed by that on this level in this conversation.
And then I think we could both agree that I think that the Warriors are still going to be better than everybody thinks.
They still got Russell. D'Angelo Russell's sitting there in Golden State too. So there's maybe a fourth. Okay.
So I think then the way I think this gets interesting is that when you're talking about each of the individual pairs, James Harden and Chris Paul are better than Chris Middleton. I would still rank Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton as one of the 5 best duos in the league because Giannis is so good and because Chris Middleton is so good with him.
I completely agree. I think Chris Middleton, people have been impressed with him, and I think that NBA people kind of get it at this point, but I don't know if most people really appreciate how good Chris Middleton is. He is an elite shooter,
no doubt,
but also has size and you're right, his complementary skill set with Giannis is truly remarkable. So I am with you. I think Giannis and just about anybody is going to be a top 5 duo in the league. Certainly Giannis and Chris Middleton is very hard for me to rank them outside the top 5.
So I have Giannis and Chris Middleton ranked 4th.
Okay.
And then I got Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum 5th.
Okay.
Because I think that CJ McCollum's borderline top 20 player in the league. But I just think he's a way more complimentary. CJ McCollum complements Damian Lillard much better than Chris Paul complements James Harden.
Mm-hmm. Here's my issue with Portland, and you know that I'm rooting for the Blazers, man. Dame out of the Big Sky, C.J. McCollum, little school guy. You know, I'm always on those stories. They're small. They're physically small guys in the NBA. And as great as they are as scorers, and I've seen both of them straight up take over games offensively, it's a liability to have those two defensively and not have an elite ball player. Now, maybe if you have Nurkic, it changes things that way a little bit. And maybe you say, hey, look, man, you can still throw a body out there and play defense with some length. You know, just pick a guy up. It's the NBA. You got that, and that is true. But you're not combating LeBron and Anthony Davis with C.J. McCollum and Damian Lillard. You know, and again, you're obviously we're ranking them down below. But when I'm talking about Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, I'm putting them above CJ and Damian Lillard. And I think these guys are absolutely next level, both of those guys, but I think it's really one directional for the Blazers, and I think they're going to struggle.
But didn't the Blazers just beat the Nuggets in the playoffs?
They did. In an excruciatingly great 7-game series. They did come through and they got the thing done, and I give them all the credit in the world for doing it. I don't know, man. I'm so high on Jokic right now, though. I don't really know what to say. I mean, I think he is. He's not the best true big in the NBA. Anthony Davis might be. It probably take Joel Embiid, but I think he's the most complimentary. He makes the guys around him more better than any of the other bigs in the league.
Totally. The most intriguing part about Jokic and Jamal Murray too is that they're both less than 23 years old. I think Jokic is 23 and Jamal Murray is 22.
Right.
So those guys have a ton of upside. So I think that Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons is really interesting because I think those two guys are two of the most talented players in the NBA, but they have not found the flow quite yet. And the fact that Simmons can't shoot, he can't really be a complementary player to a true on-the-block center. So I want to ask you a couple here. Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum or the 76ers duo?
Probably Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum. I think that the inability to shoot the ball in this NBA, which neither of those guys can. I mean, Embiid, for a guy who's 7'3" or whatever and can make a three, is impressive, but he's not a shooter, okay? He's a giant man who balls on the interior. And what I just said about the sort of one-dimensionality of C.J. McCollum and Damian Lillard is also true about Simmons and Embiid. Not so much that they are only offensive or only defensive players, but that they lack a full complementary skill set of the game in certain ways. And also, I just think Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum are both so much bigger killers mentally than certainly Ben Simmons and maybe Joel. I love Joel Embiid. I love the way he talks. I think he's a great competitor and all of that, but he's still young. You know what I mean? And those guys have developed that veteran thing. So I'd probably go with Lillard and McCollum.
Where you got Harden and Chris Paul in this whole hierarchy?
I don't know. Either third or last.
I know, right? Like just knowing what we know from the lack that they complement each other. They're both Mike Conley's never even made an all-star team. Donovan Mitchell's made one, but I would rather have Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell together. I just think that if you're James Harden, I think there's several guys on this list. James Harden, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, where you need to not team up with another guy. You need to just have a bunch of role players. You're better without another guy you.
But if that's true, with this list right here, no chance. No chance.
Well, and that's the thing, though, is when you really break this down, I think that we're just splicing hairs over fun things to discuss. Because in the reality of the situation, there is, in terms of going into next year, to me, there are maybe 3 duos on this list, but more likely just 2. It's Anthony Davis and LeBron, and it's Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And the Warriors are going to have to scrape to get up back into that, but I just cannot see the Blazers or the Nuggets or the Rockets or the Jazz competing with the two teams in LA.
I can. Well, some of them I can. Some of them I can't. But here's the thing that's crazy. Okay, let's say that you say we both think that Russell Westbrook's on his way out of OKC.
And he is reportedly saying that now.
Yes,
today.
And so the Heat is one place that he's had. So you could do a Russell Westbrook and Jimmy Butler. But whatever. Here's what is incredible. We didn't even get into Zion Williamson with Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram, and we did not get into Luka Doncic with Kristaps Porzingis either.
Right.
But let me just list these off, these duos who are on the same team right now. Okay? Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green,
D'Angelo
Russell, Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Nika Jokic, Jamal Murray, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, James Harden, Chris Paul, Zion Williamson, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, and Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. You know what those are? That's 9 teams. You know what they are? All in the West.
Yep.
None of them are the Spurs.
Right.
I mean, you're talking
none of them
about
are the Timberwolves.
None of the Timberwolves. But if you would throw the Spurs in there's 10 teams. Math says 2 of them ain't making it. I mean, that's stunning to think about this list where you have to take 2 guys. And everybody's going to – here's what's going to happen. You're going to get to the end and you're going to say – and okay, I understand the Pelicans are really way down this list because they're so young. We haven't seen anything out of them. Who knows what you're going to get. But if you finish 7th in the West and go one and done and lose in 5 games in the first round, 8th in the West, gets swept in the first round, 9th and don't make the playoffs at all, people are going to go, well, what's the matter with you? Well, what happened? Well, why didn't it work out? Well, I'll tell you why it didn't work out. Because Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are playing together. Because Anthony Davis and LeBron James are playing together. Because Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, when he comes back, and Draymond Green, I've still been to the last 5 straight finals in a row, and they added one of the great young guards that the game has. So that's the reason why. It's not because you're flawed in some way. It's because the level that the NBA has right now at its top is as top heavy as it's ever been. And that just means some really good players and some really good teams are in fact not allowed to make the playoffs. And that's okay. Like, they shouldn't. Like, if you can't be, for crying out loud, if you can't be in the top half of your conference, get out of here. I'm not trying to excuse make, but I am also saying that this forthcoming season in particular, you might not be even a playoff team, and I wouldn't sit here and criticize you as having done something wrong or not found a way or whatever. It's just that good right now, especially still in the West.
No doubt. And that's why I think it's going to be very interesting to see, because now we have some young cores of teams that are unproven, like the Pelicans, like the Mavs. And I just feel like experience outweighs everything else. If it really does come down to it, I just cannot see the Spurs missing the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, if you throw DeMar DeRozan and Pop in there, I mean, it's not over till it's over in terms of the streak of, what did you say, 113 playoffs in a row, right?
So one sec before we get out.
Okay.
Russell Westbrook is, Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting that Russell Westbrook is out. He wants to be out. Trade me. The front runners as of yesterday were the New York Knicks, the Orlando Magic, the Detroit Pistons, and the Houston Rockets. Mm-hmm. Today, Miami Heat get in the mix. What do you think of that? What's the best destination for Russell Westbrook?
Between Miami and where?
Houston.
Yeah.
Orlando. Detroit. Or what was the 5th one? Oh, the Knicks, New York Knicks.
Well, maybe if what you say about Russell is true, the Knicks.
Here's my thing is there's all this talk over who wants to go save the Knicks, who wants to revitalize the Knicks, who wants to have that be part of their legacy, bring glory back to New York City. I think that it's a no-lose situation if Russell Westbrook goes to the Knicks, because if he really is just by himself with a bunch of young guys and he's played at Madison Square Garden 41 times, you think averaging a triple-double is impressive. This dude's going to go for 35 a night. He'll light the league on fire, and they might be a 40-win team, and he might score 40 times. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. His scoring average and their wins average, might have the same over-under.
Right. Yeah.
But Miami would be interesting because I actually do think Jimmy Butler complements him to a certain extent. I think that the worst brand of brain-rotting, eyes falling out of your head basketball in the history of the league could be if him and James Harden played together.
If he went back to with
I
Harden
mean,
in Houston.
goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Just pound it till it's flat.
Well, we'll find out soon enough. Woj will take care of us. He'll let us know when it's done. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Boys and girls, it's grilling season. It's the 4th of July is just come and gone, but that means I'm just getting ready. I already got 2 bags of charcoal going.
Let's go.
I mean, I'm doing it, buddy. Did it over the weekend. Had a barbecue with our good friend. I don't want to shut you out of this. Rajeeb Seabrook.
Hey. Shout out, Regime.
Wonder what he wants the Knicks to do other than just not be a team anymore. The right way to do this, people, season it up. Use Alpine Touch.
That's right. This Alpine Touch Grand Slam pack is so robust, it's actually breaking at the seams. But the Grand Slam package, you can get it right now, alpinetouch.com, $19.99, which gives you 4 of the Big Daddy size seasonings. You got the Prairie Fire, you got the Pepper Blend, got the Hickory Smoked, and you got the All-Purpose Original. $19.99 at alpinetouch.com, or you can give us a call right now, 329-1899, and we'll send one of these Grand Slam packages and an Alpine Touch hat right to your doorstep. Remember, if you're going to check out any of the Osprey games coming up, they got a long homestand. You got the Alpine Touch sunflower seeds available down there at the stadium as well. And Alpine Touch is taking care of you no matter what. But give us a call right now, 329-1899, and give Reese your name, phone number, and your address. And we'll send one of these Grand Slam packages, $19.99, 4 of the big seasonings, straight to your doorstep. 329-1899. Give us a call right now. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
The Osprey on a tear. We'll give some tickets away for their first home game in the homestand next.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce 2 of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get up to $150 instant rebate on 4 backcountry MT or AT tires, or $50 on 4 road control passenger tires. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
You've chosen the caterer, addressed the invitations, and picked out a cake. But have you decided where to bank? Farmers State Bank offers just what you need as you start your new life together. Checking and savings accounts, electronic banking options, the latest tech, even locally approved mortgages. And with 9 Western Montana locations, there's a Farmers State Bank where you live, work, and play. Congratulations from all of us at Farmers State Bank, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
Take summer by storm with a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the summer sales event, rebates go as high as $2,000 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on our legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $2,000 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Summer Sales Event at Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday, and they are celebrating with unprecedented savings on select parts and accessories with the purchase of a new Polaris off-road vehicle, Beta or Husqvarna dirt bike, or any of their new line of Crest pontoon boats. Go to Kurtz Polaris for details. Offers valid in U.S. through 7/23/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet, never drink and ride.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, sports fans. Tutel Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. The Missoula Osprey used a late rally to post a 9-6 win over the Billings Mustangs in 10 innings Sunday night, winning for the 5th time in 6 games in the process. The suddenly red-hot O's scored 2 runs in the top of the 8th to tie the game at 6, then scored 3 more in the 10th. Kevin Watson Jr. hit 2 home runs, including a 2-run blast in extra innings that proved to be the difference. Missoula completes its rapid 5-game road trip tonight in Billings. The Osprey, who are now 2 games back of Idaho Falls, return home Wednesday evening to face the Orem Owls.
Former Montana State standouts Tyler Hall and Keldon Blevins made their NBA Summer League debuts over the weekend. Hall, the all-time leading scorer in the history of the Big Sky Conference, played 3 minutes for the Chicago Bulls against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Sunday night. Blevins played 9 minutes, missed his only shot for the Portland Trailblazers in a 20-point loss to the Detroit Pistons on Saturday.
And finally, the NBA free agency went into overdrive over the weekend. Reigning Finals MVP Kawhi Leonard shocked the league by helping broker a deal that lands him with the Los Angeles Lakers as a free agent, while also helping the Clippers trade for All-Star forward Paul George, formerly of the OKC Thunder. That move, along with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving signing with the Brooklyn Nets and the Los Angeles Lakers, trading for Pelican superstar Anthony Davis, has changed the face of the league. Also, the United States Women's National Team, World Cup champions for a second straight time.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Celebrating their 30th birthday. That's right, 30 years they've been in business, and they are celebrating by offering 30%, that's right, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details, but get into Kurtz Polaris, Missoula, and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. Golter, the Idaho Falls Chuckers were 13-1 at one point in this year. They swept the Missoula Osprey in the first road trip of the Osprey season. They beat everybody that they played almost without exception. And then all of a sudden, the 3rd of July rolled around. Actually, it started on the 2nd of July. I think it was a 2-1 win for the Osprey, where the 3rd became a rubber match. And Missoula, down in the 9th inning, comes all the way back, and a walk-off preceding the fireworks on the 4th of July in a packed stadium in Missoula at Ogren Park and Allegiance Field, I think really kick-started this team on the 3rd to win 4-3. They go on the road, they win the last 2 against Idaho and Missoula, go on the road for a short 2-game road trip, sweep the Chuckers 5-4 and 8-5 in Idaho Falls, then go to Billings. They lost their first one 2-1 on Saturday, but then win again last night 9-6. So a rubber match tonight, 6:30 first pitch here on ESPN Radio for you. But the Missoula Osprey all of a sudden coming to life here in the last week or so, and they have closed the gap considerably on Idaho Falls.
This is the ebbs and flows of the Pioneer League, no doubt about it. But the O's had an interesting roster construction entering this summer. They have a ton of returning players, which is actually a rare thing for the Pioneer League. They have 10-plus guys that had played in Missoula before, including some guys I thought were pretty good players last year. I mean, Cesar Garcia was a good player for them last year, and he's been a good player for them this year as well. And they had a little bit older guys on the team as well, which made me think that maybe they're trying to work out some kinks with these guys, and it's kind of make it or break it time for some of these guys that are a little bit older, that are 23, 24 years old. Are these guys good enough to keep them in our system, to keep developing them, to get them up into that high AA or low AAA level? And I think that they were tinkering around with their lineup a lot. I think that their new hitting coach was tinkering around with a lot of guys' swings, and they did not hit the ball well at all the first 10 or 12 games of the season. Then they had a breakout game where they had 18 or 19 hits.
Yeah.
And since then, they've hit the ball well, and their offense has been humming right along. And now I think that they know what they have with some of their pitchers, and they know where these guys can fit into spots. I think they have their lineup a little bit closer to solidified. And, oftentimes you never know what Idaho Falls was doing out the gates. If they were just playing all their best guys right away, and now they're trying to mix it up and develop some stuff. A lot of times just the roster movement, the lineup movement has so much an impact on the actual direct results. So this is just the way it goes, though, right? I mean, Idaho Falls won 13 of their first 14, and then the O's get one, and then all of a sudden they've swept them, and then all of a sudden the O's are on a 5-game winning streak, and they were down. The O's were down 6 games when 6 games only, I think, 15 games into the season when Idaho Falls came to Missoula, and now the Osprey are down 2 games in the standings already with a big homestand coming up.
The Osprey have won 5 of their last 6. The Idaho Falls Chuckers have lost 6 of their last 6. They were 13-1. They are now 13-7. I don't want to put the Mariners jinx on them, but they are following the Seattle Mariners to a T right now. I do know that Idaho Falls had a couple of games that were rained out, and then all of a sudden now you got to play a doubleheader and back-to-back doubleheaders, and then you go play a team that's fresh, and that is a difficult thing to do. So I don't know exactly how their schedule, has come together or not. They still have played 2 less games than the Osprey have, as have the Great Falls Voyagers. Both of those teams have played 20 games this year. Missoula and Billings are up to 22. And so, how that will work itself out. But it's interesting, the ebbs and flows. But you see a team that gets off to such a torrid start and creates such a big gap. And in the Pioneer League, people may forget, but it's 2 half seasons. The first half, the winner of the first half, that's how you get into the playoffs. So the first half winner, they're in no matter what happens after that. And so in, a 78-game season or 72 games, whatever it is, you're only talking about a 35 to 38 game run to a playoff spot. And halfway through that, you got a 6-game lead. You're going, okay, looking pretty good for Idaho Falls. Well, not so fast as they're now 13-7. Missoula's 12-10. Great Falls is there at 9-11. And the Billings Mustangs, who were like 1-10 to start the year, are now 8-14 and have come to life, a little bit in their own right and really close things up. So an exciting time. Tonight is the last game, as we said, between Billings and Missoula of the road trip for Missoula, obviously the homestand. For Billings, if you're watching us in Billings, thank you. Good for you. You found the right place. But this will be the rubber match tonight, as Missoula won last night. Billings won the first game. And then 2 nights from now, a travel day tomorrow, and then the Orem Owls head to Missoula. The Owls 7-15 in the Pioneer League South. You start to get into the interdivisional play now with Orem coming to town. They're 7-15, and they are in last place currently in the Pioneer League South. They'll be in Missoula. We have a 4-pack of tickets for you right here, right now. You want to go see the Osprey play? Not tomorrow night, but Wednesday night in Missoula. Going to be a very nice night at the ballpark. I am told the Jack Weatherman says it looks pretty good this week, so you can check that out. 329-1899. 329-1899. Give us a call right now, and you got yourself a 4-pack of tickets. A 4-pack of tickets to go see the Osprey and the Orem Owls on Wednesday night. Quick break. When we come back, thought the U.S. Women's National Team was great. I thought the NBA free agency was amazing. It still was not my favorite thing that happened in sports in the weekend. I'll tell you what that was next.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, but we also know that you're going to pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it. Well, not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with a staff of specialists that can answer any question. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and, are you ready, lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
When you need a bank to help ramp up your savings strategy, look to your local bank, Opportunity Bank of Montana. Build confidence in your financial future when you create a rainy day cushion or take care of the nest egg you already have. Opportunity Bank offers options from basic savings to money market accounts and certificates with competitive rates. There's nothing like the feeling of progress, so let's get started today. Come see us at Opportunity Bank of Montana, OpportunityBank.com. Member FDIC.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from Tutel Nuanez 1029 ESPN Missoula here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom got me a great deal on an automatic car starter this winter. Now it's summer. What sort of stuff you guys got going on down there, Tom?
Well, Colter, coming into the summertime, we're picking up on the window tinting front. So if you need your windows tinted, give us a call. We'll get you scheduled up. Boats and ATVs are starting to come in full swing, and we're also starting to see the hot rods come out to play. Anything audio related, let us know. We'll get you taken care of.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh of the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, what are people left dealing with after an accident?
Well, quite a few things, actually. We see people that are in pain, they still need to get to work, they need to raise their kids, and now they have to take time to go see doctors and other healthcare providers. They're frustrated with working with the insurance companies and getting the runaround. We'll take on the burden of dealing with the insurance companies so you can get the best settlement possible and get back to your life.
Find your advocate online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
You're a big league fan. You expect big league service. At the Desperado, you get exactly that. With 35 flat screens, ice-cold brews on tap, and Missoula's #1 wings, you're free to sit back and enjoy every pitch. This summer, make the Desperado your baseball home away from home. Cool off after work, relax on the weekends, soak in some great food and drinks, and watch your team make yet another great push for October. And hey, if yours can't do it, there's plenty of other teams and fun to go around at the Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
AmeriCorps Montana is your opportunity to take the path less traveled, to connect with others and be part of the solution. Join AmeriCorps and create your own future. As an AmeriCorps member, you can inspire youth, serve families in need, improve Montana's landscapes, and more, all while gaining professional experience. AmeriCorps is your moment to be the greater good. Visit joinamericorps.gov to learn more.
Brought to you by the Montana Office of Community Service and this station.
If it matters to Missoula, it matters to us. Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio. Now from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
What was the best sports thing that happened this weekend? As far as I'm concerned, it's not actually that close. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. You missed anything in the first hour or the second hour? Any part of the show, we got you covered on the podcast. Podcast available all the time, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the Tutel and Nuanez podcast. It's there thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotels. We are broadcasting live, as always, from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, and they are celebrating their 30th birthday all month. July represents 30 years of being in business, and they are celebrating by offering 30% off. That's right, up to 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna or Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. And into Kurtz all month long, Missoula and Sealy for their 30th anniversary sale. Colter, for as great as the United States women's national team was, for as intriguing as NBA free agency was, and it's rare that you get one out of the clear blue sky like the Paul George deal. I mean, nobody had rumored anything about that. And all of a sudden,
imagine the look on Sam Presti's face when Paul George comes walking onto his front lawn and says, "Sam, we got to talk."
Yeah, no one saw that one coming. So that was fun. That was exciting. I enjoyed that very much. But the thing that I liked the very most this weekend, Coco Gauff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not a big tennis guy now, okay? I look at it from time to time. But, I'm watching her play Polina Herzog of Slovenia in the third round to get into the round of 16, to get into the second week, which is always a big deal to cross from the first week of Wimbledon into the threshold into the second week of Wimbledon. And, there had been obviously this talk of course, when she beats Venus Williams in the first round, and you go, what? 15-year-old kid? Is this the next face of American tennis, of women's tennis, which have been carried for so long by the Williams sisters? And then you see her, and you're like, oh, and then she wins again, backs it up, and now she's going against, this Herzog, who's this, very strong in her prime. I think 27 years old is Herzog, and Slovenian tennis player. Loses the first set like 6-3, is down like 4-1 in the second set, and you're going, oh, it's over. And I turned it on somewhere in that second set. It's going so bad, not falling apart, but just being outplayed. And all of a sudden, the determination of this kid, man. But it's amazing. Sometimes children. I mean, I got this little 6-year-old girl, man. If she decides, no, I'm doing this thing, she just goes crazy. She just goes for it. And sometimes, at 15 years old, you have a certain switch that either it's built or what Travis DeCure, we talked about motivation and motivating players. He's like, hey, you don't coach that, you recruit that. It's either in you or it's not. And to watch her turn the thing around, and she got some help from Herzog for sure, but she just started to say, not today. And in the tennis world, I don't see that often. Maybe it's just because I don't watch it that often or whatever. But I was riveted. Couldn't get out of my chair. Watch her all the way back in the second set. Watch her go to tie break to win the second set. Third set goes 7-6 and wins the thing. And I'm sitting here. I'm tweeting. I'm yelling. I'm texting my mom. My mom had left her house because she's like, well, this thing's over. She's a big Wimbledon fan, my mom. I watched the whole thing, and I could not have been more enraptured and rooting for Coco Gauff than I was over the weekend. Now, she did fall today in the round of 16. She lost in straight sets, 6-3, 6-3, I think it was. But for this 15-year-old kid to explode onto the scene like this and just be, there's just the sweetness of somebody who's new, who hasn't had all of the celebrity and all of the endorsements, who's just out there playing the game, doing the thing. It was fantastic, and I had a huge, huge kick watching her. So thank her for that. Her folks who were also great in the stands, rooting for every point, and just turmoil. Every single volley back and forth was tremendous, because I'm like, I know this day's coming for me, and it's just going to be Little League. That's all. I'm going to be sitting there just wiping my hands together, terrified about what's going to happen. Absolute blast watching her play, though.
Tennis is definitely the sport where it's easiest to break in at such a young age. But we've seen a lot of Anna Kournikovas and very few Monica Seles and even fewer Steffi Grafs. Girls that turned into women that were dominant the whole time. Steffi Graf's probably the greatest example of a teenage star that then became a dominant player as an adult too. She was dominant throughout her career. She's one of the greatest women's tennis players ever. But Monica Seles had a really good youth, and then it sort of petered off. There's a lot of extenuating circumstances with when she got stabbed and all this crazy stuff.
Grand Slam winner though, and
totally.
And all that.
But then there's Anna Kournikova, who was the darling of tennis when she was 17 years old, not much older than Coco Gauff, and never really amounted to anything. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy to burn out. But what I saw from Coco Gauff that's different than so many others is women's tennis is so fueled by emotion, and I think Serena Williams is unquestionably the greatest women's tennis player of all time.
Yes.
And it's because of her ability to be incredibly emotional and still harness it, thrive off of it, use it as fire. Coco Gauff has a much more subdued demeanor, but what I saw was such a resilient and determined young lady. She didn't let. I mean, so often when you're in that situation, you melt under the emotion. Even Serena Williams melts down under the emotion a lot of times, and Coco Gauff never let the emotion get to her whatsoever. The only flaw that she has is in the maturity of her game, because she's so young.
Right.
But in terms of the mental side of it, she is absolutely elite already. Yes. Elite.
Yeah, it was. I mean, to be at your first ever Wimbledon and to come back against somebody who's almost twice your age, who's in the heart of their career and who's been doing this for a long time. I was looking this up. I think Polina Herzog has won like over $3 million, and as she's very. Let's be clear. I don't think she's ever been to the second week of Wimbledon before herself. She was playing for a lot personally too, and clearly that got to her. But it did not. Not only did it not get to Gauff, and maybe that's the glory of youth, is that you don't have the history that might come back to bite you, as it seemed to for her. But also she poured it on, man. She just was not having it, and at some point. Really broke her opponent. both literally in terms of the points and then also sort of in spirit as well. Very impressive. And so she was great fun, and I hope that she is doing this for a long time. Not burning out, not doing all that stuff. She was just very, very fun, very sweet, I thought, and I enjoyed it a lot.
I just really hope that she doesn't fall into the low-hanging fruit that's about to perpetuate what the perception the world has of her is. Everybody's just going to say, because of who she is, where she comes from, what she looks like, that she's just going to be the next Venus or Serena Williams. And I think that's just completely unfair, because she's built totally different than either of the Williams sisters, and she plays the game in honestly the opposite fashion. The Williams sisters, again, they are among the fiercest competitors we have seen in the 21st century, no question. But they live off of emotion, and they also die by emotion. And Coco Gauff is the opposite of that. So I hope that she doesn't get swallowed alive by the narrative of her being the heir apparent, because I think she could be the heir apparent as long as she doesn't try to be them.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, very good. Boys and girls, check out the podcast. Check out the stream. 15 minutes. We'll send you out to pregame for the rubber match between the Missoula Osprey and Billings Mustangs, and enjoy some Osprey baseball on this Monday evening. Thanks for being with us. Have a wonderful rest of your night. It's Tutel Nuanez, ESPN Radio, SWX, Montana Television.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer